Welcome to another edition of Green is Good. We're so honored to have with us my friend, Dr. Michael Galitzer. Welcome to Green is Good, Dr. Galitzer.
Nice to be here with you, John.
Hey, I'm so glad you joined us. There's a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking about actually your specialty, which is the topic of ageless vitality. But before we get talking about that topic, I would love you to share with our listeners the Dr. Michael Galitzer story, a little bit of your journey becoming the holistic practitioner you are today.
Sure. Grew up in New York City, John, and went to college at Buffalo Medical School in Syracuse. After 8 years in winter wonderland, came out to L.A. for my internship and went into emergency medicine. Did that for about 15 years. Really made me a great doctor. And after 15 years, I think I estimated that I lived a total of 3 years, 24-hour shifts in my of my life in a hospital. Was burnt out, looking for a change. Came across a nutrition practice, and they wanted the doctor to know nutrition and general practice. So I knew the general practice from being an ER doc, but didn't have a clue about nutrition. Figured I'd learn nutrition. Went to seminars, read books. Got a nutritionist, started doing new blood tests, and nobody got any better. And one of the people who didn't get better was my best friend at the time. And in running all these new blood tests, found out he had mercury toxicity from his silver fillings. So I heard the expert, Hal Huggins, on mercury toxicity speak. This was 1986. And went up to him afterwards asking him who I could refer my friend to locally here in L.A. to remove the fillings. And in those days, you would do a blood test like a food allergy test to find out what metals were compatible with the person's blood to put back into the teeth. And we ran that test, and my friend came back from the dentist in L.A. and said, well, you wouldn't believe it, but this dentist had this machine, and he was testing my acupuncture points, and he had all these vials for all these different metals, and he gave me a list of what metals were good for me and what metals were bad for me. And they exactly matched the blood test, John. So I said, if you can figure this out without blood from your finger, I want to meet this dentist. So the dentist told me about this technology coming from Europe. It had actually been around for 20 years in Europe, and people were actually lecturing on this technology here in L.A. Went to their first seminar, late 86, and I've been doing it ever since. So the procedure is called electrodermal testing, and it's a way to figure out what nutrients, supplements, vitamins, minerals, herbs, even antibiotics, antidepressants will work best for a patient's body.
And that's just one of the many practices that you employ at your practice, correct?
Correct, yeah. The practice here involves using homeopathy, herbs, photon therapy, which is a kind of light therapy, music therapy, pulsed electromagnetic therapy with a machine called the OnDemand, ionized oxygen, and a lot of intravenous therapy, intravenous vitamin C, intravenous glutathione, chelation when indicated, even intravenous hydrogen peroxide. So we've got a lot of different things to suit a lot of different people here.
You know, for our listeners out there that want to follow along or learn more about your practice and all the great technologies that you're using to help people live healthier and longer and better lives, they could go to your great website, which is chock full of information. It's www.drgalitzer.com. Dr. Galitzer, GALITZER.com. Talk a little bit about being a green doctor and the impact that you have on our lives now that we have so many environmental burdens on within society, on our lives more than ever before, and constant stress with all these technologies that keep us wired 24 hours a day. Talk a little bit about how you impact patients with the using of all these different technologies that you just shared with us, and how you help us all live a better and more vital life.
Sure, I'd be glad to, John. Basically, when a patient comes in here, what I hear is I don't feel well from a patient, whether it be fatigue, I can't sleep, my joints hurt, my muscles hurt, I'm irritable, I've got hot flashes, night sweats. But the real thing I really hear is fatigue, and I try to explain to people that traditional medicine looks at the body from a physical point of view, x-rays, CAT scans, MRIs, and from a chemical point of view, blood tests. But frequently, those two don't correlate with I don't feel well. And it's really on a deeper electrical level that we look at here. And that's where these I don't feel well changes exist. The analogy is if you saw a cardiologist, he would do an EKG because there's electricity in the heart. And if you saw a neurologist, he'd do an EEG because there's electricity in the brain. Well, there's electricity everywhere else: liver, kidneys, pancreas, adrenals, thyroid. So I try to tell people that their body is like an orchestra, and these organs and glands are instruments in that orchestra. Some are in tune, some are out of tune. Some age quicker than others. We all know people whose brains have aged quicker than their hearts. Other people's hearts have aged quicker than their brains. And I tell them that if we can get everything in balance, the music is right, and people feel a lot better. The other concept that I tell them is toxicity. When I was in the ER, we were concerned about life-threatening toxins, overdose of sleeping pills, carbon monoxide inhalation. This society, we're faced with a bombardment of toxins. There's heavy metals, there's pesticides, petrochemicals, viruses, bacteria, yeast, electromagnetic frequencies. These all accumulate in the body, and then our bodies don't work as well as they should. So we're always trying to reduce the toxicity, balance the orchestra, and also looking at hormonal balance, the key hormone being the adrenal glands, because the adrenal glands are really all about survival and the ability to handle stressful situations. And in our society, very fast-paced, people working too hard, not playing enough, ultimately their adrenal glands get tired, their ability to handle stress gets reduced, they can't differentiate between large stress and little stress, and ultimately they come in here with wiped-out adrenals, inability to handle stress, fatigue, can't sleep, and you've got the picture.
So now you approach this from a holistic point of view. Can you explain to our listeners then what happens? I mean, you have these different machines, but also you have energy medicine and homeopathic stuff. And just from truth in advertising for our listeners out there, I have been going to Dr. Galitzer for years. He's helped improve my life and my family's life tremendously. And that's why I invited him on the show, because I know Dr. Galitzer does tremendous and great work. So can you walk us through a little bit now? The patient's in there, I don't feel well. You start testing him or her, and now what are some of the processes and natural ways that you helped the patients get on a better path, a better journey to health and wellness?
Sure. Well, before we do the testing that I do in my office, we run a couple of tests on them, one called a bioimpedance test, John, and also a heart rate variability. Mm-hmm. And the heart rate variability test is very important. It actually measures stress objectively. It looks at what's called the autonomic nervous system, or the automatic nervous system, the system that controls your blood pressure, pulse, breathing. You don't have to think about these things. They're automatic. It has two parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, the sympathetic being left-brained, driving you through the day, accomplishing what you have to accomplish, performance. Parasympathetic being relaxation, regeneration, recovery. And by looking at the heartbeat, both lying and stressing the person by standing up, we can look at how strong or weak these nervous systems are. And usually the parasympathetic nervous system is the weakest system. It's usually quite weak. And when that is the case, it's usually the liver and the adrenals that are, we call sluggish. You can't see this on a blood test. And basically the liver, along with the kidneys and the lymphatic system, are the ways that the body gets rid of toxins. So when people come in here, they're usually very toxic. And we usually start this by telling them what they can do to reduce toxicity. They can take a lemon, cut it in half, squeeze the juice out of both halves, pour it into 6 to 8 ounces of water, drink that down. A green drink. You've got the green show. Well, a green drink would be really helpful. They should definitely be juicing every morning. Some combination of celery, spinach, and other green vegetables. Wheatgrass juice, another green drink, can be very, very helpful for the liver. So the first 4 letters in liver are live, and you really want to get this liver moving. And again, it's a sluggish liver, not a liver that you can see on a blood test that's having issues. The kidneys are helped by lots of good water. Chlorophyll is great for the kidneys. Horsetail tea is great for the kidneys. Asparagus is great for the kidneys. And the lymph system is usually helped by no dairy, deep breathing, and bouncing kind of exercise, a trampoline or a mini trampoline called a rebounder, jumping jacks, jumping rope. So the first approach is you've got toxins, you've got a drain that's kind of clogged. We want to unclog the drain. We want to stimulate the liver, lymph, and kidneys. And to that, we add homeopathic and herbal formulas. And once we have that in place, we can move on to balancing the hormonal system, especially the adrenals. And we can use a variety of substances from vitamin C to vitamin D to adrenal extracts, glandulars, DHEA, homeopathics. If you can, number one, get the toxins out, and number two, balance the key gland, which is the adrenals, and allow patients to, reduce their fatigue and handle stress better, then we're really off to the races. So that's the initial approach, and from that, the patient will go into other rooms here where we have pulsed electromagnetic field therapy for the liver and the adrenals. We have light therapy for the liver and adrenals. We have injection therapy, IV therapy. And basically, a lot of people will actually feel a complete change on the first visit here.
I've seen people come to your practice, Michael, and they've been very, very down when they walk through the door. And it seems like every time they walk back out of your door, you've given them hope. And do you feel that that's part of what you do in terms of counseling them and coaching them towards a better and a more vital life journey, giving them hope that if they do make some alterations in their both diet and lifestyle, they can live a better and healthier and more productive life?
Right, absolutely. Hope is something that a lot of doctors just don't do, and the perfect example of that is in cancer work, where you'll have cancer, and a doctor will say to you, "Well, there's a 90% chance that you're going to be dead in 2 years," and the patient walks out of there completely hopeless, so to speak. But when you look at that, and you talk to the patient, you say, "Well, are you sure you're in the 90% group, or are you in the 10% group?" And so, that statement by a doctor of 90% chance is what's called a nocebo, which is basically the opposite of placebo. That means if you give a patient a negative thought pattern, you may create a negative result. And on a certain level, you can think of medical statistics as being collective nocebos. And maybe if you had no medical statistics, people might live a lot longer. So as you say, hope is really, really critical. You've got to support the patient. But, the big deal is that if their state changes, if their energy changes, hope returns really, really quickly.
For our listeners out there that just joined us, we've got my friend Dr. Michael Galitzer on with us today. You could find Dr. Galitzer at www.drgalitzer, GALITZER.com. Michael, you treat many people, just normal people like the Shigerian family, but you also treat people who, as you say, medicine has traditionally given up on. People with cancer, autoimmune diseases, anxiety and depression, and also famous people and celebrities and movie stars. Can you share a little bit about the mix of your practice and the patients and how you've helped people from all walks of life with all sorts of different conditions and all different stratas in terms of just regular nice people and also these regular nice movie stars that also come to you because they have a lot of money, but they also are sometimes lacking in hope?
Right. Well, the movie stars seem to have hope, and I've seen, for an example, Suzanne Summers has become a good friend. I've been seeing her for about 10 years as a patient, and we've become good friends.
Right.
Vanessa Williams comes here. Linda Gray comes here. In the past, Anthony Hopkins came here. There's always been musicians have come here: Kenny Loggins, Peter Noon, Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder.
Wow.
So there have always been these people, but most of the people that I see are everyday people that are not movie stars and don't feel well. And in LA, there's it is sunny, but the air isn't so great. And I think the number one stress in people's lives is noise. And so there's too much noise, too many cars, too much pollution, and so ultimately, if you draw blood from a newborn baby, John, there's 200 chemicals in a newborn baby's blood. So we're all walking around with too many toxins in our system, and so consequently, the people that I see here are from all walks of life, actually from all the continents too. People just have somehow gravitated towards me, probably through the Suzanne Summers books that I've had interviews in the last 9 books. And so I've been able to attract a very interesting group of people that have come here.
Doc, also, you've coached me and my family on digital toxicity. Can you share with our listeners, because of the boom in technology with all the gadgets that everyone has now, there's a toxicity with regards to stress and anxiety and being hooked in 24 hours a day. Plus, also, there's a toxicity with regards to how we sleep and interact with them. Can you share some of your tips on how to uncouple and live a less toxic, digitally connected lifestyle?
Well, that's, you really want to, John, you want to keep your bedroom as electromagnetically free as possible. That's the time when we regenerate and when we sleep. So you don't want anything electric. You don't want to sleep on a waterbed. You don't want an electric alarm clock that's any closer than 9 feet from the head of your bed. If you had to sleep and you had to do the ideal way to sleep, you'd like to sleep with your head to magnetic north. And that's not always easy with patients having to rearrange their bedroom. Cell phones, you certainly want to be off in the bedroom, and even the portable phones. Portable phones really emit an electromagnetic signal that's not really helpful for people's health, and so it's the stand, not the phone itself. So I'd recommend that you have a cord on, the cord phones. The old cord phones are probably the healthiest to have if you're going to have them in the house. And again, nothing electric in the bedroom. That's where, you want to keep that as electromagnetically quiet as possible. You certainly don't want high power lines near your bedroom. And the interesting thing is, by the way, is that dogs will tell you where the perfect spot is electromagnetically. Where dogs sleep is the ideal place in a house electromagnetically, as opposed to cats, which is the ideal worst place for cat sleep. So
really,
look at the dogs and the cats. The dogs will tell you where to go. The cats will tell you where not to go.
There you go. That's a great tip. Michael, we're down to the last 2 or 3 minutes. I'd love you to share a couple of things, where your practice is going in the next 5 years, and any other tips you could share with our listeners to live a better and more healthy lifestyle.
Well, on the second part, I just want, a lot of my patients travel, first of all, and on airplanes, I tell them that that's the place where their immune system gets a major hit, recirculated air, people coughing, and I encourage them to take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C every hour while they're in the airplane. And again, I've got a very mobile population here, and everybody seems to be flying around. So the more vitamin C you can take while you're on the airplane, the healthier you'll be when you land. In terms of where it's gone, I see that, unfortunately, I think this is going to be a pretty bad winter for the flu. Basically, based on the fact that I saw a whole lot of flus over the summer, more so in the summer than ever before. So I think this virus, you can call it different names. In the news there's Ebola, but I think that we're going to be really sensitive. We're all going to be affected by the flu, and so therapies that can help people get over the flu, intravenous vitamin C, I think is, I urge everybody out there to find a doctor who does intravenous vitamin C, and you can find those through ACAM, American College for Advancement in Medicine, or A4M. These are the organizations that are really teaching the new medicine to doctors and health professionals. So I'd say that the future is probably more about how can we boost up our immune system through intravenous therapies, and there are a lot of new intravenous therapies on the horizon. And ultimately, I think it's how can we get people over this global fear of cancer? How can we tell people that it isn't a death sentence, that you can live with your cancer? And how can we bring, actually the big picture is how do we bring this kind of medicine, alternative integrative medicine, to cooperate with traditional medicine? How do we get the doctors to start opening up? And with that vein, I've we'll be publishing a book in the next 4 weeks called Outstanding Health.
Good. And I urge our listeners to buy your book, Outstanding Health, and go to your website. If you want to go see Dr. Galitzer, you can find him at www.drdrgalitzer.com. Thank you, Dr. Michael Galitzer, not only for helping the Shigarian family, but for inspiring us all to age vitally. You are truly living proof that green is good.